For several years, TikTok has been in the news as a fad-inducing viral social media app. It's also become the target of growing regulatory action by governments around the world. Particular reckoning arrived yesterday with the U.S. Congress. Following hours of intensely interrogating TikTok CEO Shou Chu, the U.S. government now looks increasingly prepared to ban the app from use in America, which happens to be TikTok's largest remaining global market. For their part, the Chinese government, and it should be noted, a large number of Chinese people, see American actions as discriminatory. They angrily accuse the U.S. of unfairly targeting Chinese companies as part of a larger effort to contain China's rise to power. I suggest that business and political leaders on both sides would better serve each of their own consumers and citizens by going beyond hurling accusations. Instead, they should take a hard look at the underlying structural issues separating the U.S. and Chinese markets. That's the only way to formulate effective responses to this latest flashpoint in U.S.-China economic relations. The rise of TikTok is fairly recent and highly impressive. The company was earning less than $400 million annually as recently as 2019. By 2022, it raked in over $9 billion. Those revenues nearly doubled between the end of 2021 and 2022. Considering how the stock performance of American big tech brands like Facebook, Amazon, and Google have been in the dumps this past year, TikTok's earnings growth is all the more remarkable. Moreover, India, now the world's most populous country, has banned TikTok since 2020, meaning the app has grown without access to the largest digital market outside of China. Although TikTok emerged from a Chinese tech ecosystem, it and other social media apps used outside of China have flourished within a uniquely hands-off, essentially unregulated media environment with origins in previous American legislation, the Telecommunications Act of 1996. The now infamous Section 230 of that law states that no internet media provider shall be treated as a media publisher. On the plus side, because of that stipulation, social media has flourished in a relatively free marketplace environment without much government oversight, as a global industry with American companies leading the way. On the negative side, by essentially giving a free pass to big tech corporations wherever content is shared across their platforms, a veritable hornet's nest of disinformation, addictive behaviors, divisive commentary, suicide ideation, incitement to violence, and subversive political influence operations have exploded as well. This, to be clear, emerged around an industry led by American companies like Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. So to the Chinese government, many ordinary people in China, and to a not insignificant portion of the 150 million TikTok users and creators in America who view the app as a legitimate communication and business tool, yesterday's congressional hearing smacks of unfairly singling out TikTok while ignoring a much bigger negative impact by the harmful content broadcast across American social media platforms. These counterarguments undeniably have merit. Indeed, they are a further reminder of the need for the U.S. to overhaul its own national regulations on monitoring digital content and big tech access to and monetization of personal data. At the same time, the Chinese government also has on its own undeniably created an enormous impediment for any Chinese tech company hoping to expand abroad. It's done so by going in the opposite direction of the goals of America's Section 230. Whereas U.S. law lacks much expectation for technology company accountability, China's more recently enacted National Intelligence Law of 2017 states quite plainly that the requirement for any Chinese organization or citizen to, quote, support, assist, or comply with government-sanctioned espionage. On top of this, China's longer-standing Great Firewall of censorship poses an additional set of issues for the idea of equal access to China's world-leading digital marketplace. A tremendous amount can be said both about America's Section 230 and Chinese regulations like its National Intelligence Law, but the deeper macro and microeconomic significances are that the world's number one and number two economies have fundamentally opposed objectives in their regulatory frameworks for digital competition. These in turn have radically different ramifications for global tech. The likes of Facebook, Google, Instagram, and Twitter are already effectively shut out of operating in China. TikTok looks increasingly likely to face a similar fate in the US. According to the classically liberal logic of a free but regulated marketplace, there is an easy solution: harmonize the conflicting regulatory regimes, ideally by increasing corporate accountability in the US while eliminating China's requirement for espionage collaboration. If only it was that easy. The US and China are so far apart in their views on rights and obligations for social media as to make that compelling economic logic practically impossible. So, the bottom line for global tech companies is they will need to adopt varied and flexible strategies in response to what has become a fundamentally divided digital universe, what has become popularly known as the splinternet. That means, in essence, a different business model for countries within the orbit of a US regime rooted in free speech and those favoring a Chinese approach that accommodates censorship and surveillance. That global market reality demands going far beyond developing the sorts of amazing technical features that innovative high tech companies are already highly adept at. Global tech now needs to do much more to be able to develop not just computational software, but human soft skills in order to better recognize and plan around prevailing cultural and regulatory conditions. Not only that, but they need to do this for markets structured around radically dissimilar principles of digital governance heavily influenced by the US and China. To stay competitively ahead, companies also need to find creative ways not only to stay on top of current regulatory trends, but to anticipate possible future political changes and be prepared to respond in kind. The saga of TikTok's spectacular rise and large scale setbacks show the risks that distinguish this new phase for regulation and competition in the world of high technology.